So I want you to recall back to when you were in a sports team and you had this one kid who just had this natural explosive twitch, who could just outrun everyone, jump higher than everyone, outlift everyone. There was just this mental intention where they could perform actions very explosively. Or in contrast to that, you had this one kid who perhaps wasn't as strong as everyone else, but they had like a gas tank from hell. They never seemed to get tired. What is it that explains those outliers with those freakish athletic abilities? It's hard to pinpoint exactly because the parameters are endless, but one very detrimental factor is that of the muscle fibers, the composition of them. As you may know, each and every individual in the world, they have a different composition of muscle fibers. We have the fast twitch muscle fibers and the slow twitch muscle fibers. The slow twitch muscle fibers are not able to produce significant powers like to a high level, but they are very endurant and they can go on for a long time. One slow twitch muscle fiber is known as type 1. And then we have the fast twitch muscle fibers that can produce a lot of power in a small amount of time, like they are very twitchy, explosive, but they get tired out very quickly. And in this fast twitch category we have type 2A and type 2X. Type 2X being even more powerful than the type 2A. So every single human that is born, they will have different levels of those muscle fibers, and to a very large extent, which we're going to get into later, this is genetic. Like one athlete might have 90% slow twitch muscle fibers and 10% fast twitch, and this athlete would of course be very suitable for endurance event. For most people, this would be a little more balanced, like 60-40, 50-50. It is not often like you have someone that is genetically born with like 90-10 or 80-20. Those are usually the outliers who will find success very easily when it comes to sports that require athletic abilities exclusively. The more a sport leans towards physical capacity alone, whether that is endurance or strength or power, the more of an advantage those outliers will have in this sport. Fortunately, in most sports, it's not only about athletic abilities, it's also about thinking, strategizing, kind of like chess, so it balances out even if you have good athletic capabilities, like, for example, boxing or soccer. Those kind of sports, they require a lot of thinking as well, so it's not only about athletic abilities. So muscle fibers for like different sports, like we said, like if you're into marathon, of course it would be more desirable to possess the slow twitch muscle fibers rather than the fast twitch muscle fibers, because you're gonna go on for a very long time. If you're doing a power sport like Olympic weightlifting, sprinting, jumping, throwing, you would desire the fast twitch muscle fibers. If we were to take a segment of the muscle and put it under a microscope and really zoom in, we could see the difference between those muscle fibers. The endurant muscle fibers, the slow twitch, because they have a lot of capillaries surrounding it, a lot of blood flow, they will have a slightly more darker color because, as you may know, oxygen is transported through the blood to the muscles, and this is dependent on the aerobic capacity, the slow twitch muscle fibers. In contrast to that, the fast twitch muscle fibers would have a very light color in comparison to the slow twitch, and that is because they are not as dependent on blood flow. They are more dependent on anaerobic capacity, that is without oxygen. So this, explosive movement, strength, fast twitch. So you would see a distinct difference between the characteristics of those muscle fibers. And the way they analyze this is known as a biopsy. They just take a very small piece of the muscle and put it under a microscope, and then they can determine the muscle fiber composition of one individual. And of course, the composition of each body part can vary. For example, if you were to take a biopsy on the forearms, it would be a lot different than the calf muscle. So it depends on the area as well. And when you do an action, you have to recruit something known as a motor unit, whether that is writing a letter, throwing a ball, running as fast as you can. And this motor unit is correspondent to the type of the muscle fiber. So for example, If you are utilizing the slow twitch muscle fiber, you will use the slow twitch motor units. If you're utilizing the fast twitch, it's the fast twitch motor unit. To put it this way, imagine you're doing a very low effort task, like just everyday activity, taking a walk, washing the dishes, whatever, it's just low effort. Then it would be unwise for your body, of course, to use the biggest and the fastest motor units. It would use the smallest motor units because that's the only thing it has to do. So in a sense, those small motor units, they are always active. They are active for me right now because I'm just talking. It's not a lot of muscular effort, so they are just active. But if I were to increase my effort a little bit more, I would have to recruit the bigger motor units and the fast twitch motor units. Let's say I were to run 1 kilometer or 100 meters as fast as I possibly can, or I were to compete like in a powerlifting event, just lift a weight that is very heavy. Then not only the slow twitch or the small motor units would be activated, but I would also have to recruit the bigger and the faster motor units as well. And this phenomenon is known as the size principle. So the demand of the activity determines the size of the motor units. The smallest ones are always active, but if the effort of the task increases, the big ones will also come into the picture. And what does this tell us exactly as athletes? It means that any action, any powerful action, it begins in the brain. Because if you're to perform a muscular action, powerfully for instance, you would have to think powerfully. Your brain, it sends a signal through the spinal cord and it travels through what is known as an axon. This is like the wire in the motor unit that connects the muscle cells with the neuronal cells. And this collectively is called the motor unit. And this is only one motor unit. It's the area that innervates the muscle cell and the neurons. So naturally, if you want to perform a powerful action, you would not be satisfied with one. You want to recruit multiple of them, many of them. So because this means that collectively they will produce a much more powerful action. And this also explains why when you're in a powerlifting competition, when you're lifting a heavy weight, whatever you're doing, you have to put yourself in a powerful, like dark state. Try to imagine like bad things sort of to motivate yourself to recruit as many motor units as you can. This is why when you're watching a competition, a powerlifting competition, a sprinting contest, you will often see those athletes like almost putting themselves in like a animalistic, primitive state to really put forth as much effort as they possibly can. This is because they naturally want to recruit as many motor units as possible, those fast twitch muscle fibers for this powerful event. And in contrast to that, like in an endurance event, for example, it's about producing powerful movements, yes, but it's spread across like a very long timetable, so you just have to endure. So as a summary, everything begins in the brain and you have to engage those muscle fibers. You can have a very good like fast twitch muscle fiber distribution, but if you're not doing a good job of engaging those, it's not going to do you any good. Also, for example, once again, if you were to take a biopsy and see your muscle fibers in the microscope, you would of course see the different colors of them because we have the fast twitch and the slow twitch, type 1, type 2b and type 2x. And if you would engage like the slow twitch muscle fibers only, those slow twitch muscle fibers in this picture as you see right now, they would only be recruited segmentally, like spread out, because the fast twitch muscle fibers are left out because the task doesn't require as much effort for them to come in. But if you were to perform an action much more powerfully, you would see that the area of recruitment would increase correspondingly as well, like everything would be involved now. Now, all of this begs the question, are those muscle fibers genetic, or can they to a certain extent be modified so that they suit a certain athlete in a certain sport? This is a very debated topic. It's still being researched to this day and the evidence is very conflicting. There is one thing though that is very sure. The type 2 muscle fibers can change within their own categories. For example, Type 2A can go to Type IIx and Type IIx can go to Type 2A. However, if Type 1 muscle fibers can be decreased and converted into Type 2 fibers, that is the fast twitch, this is a very debated area, and the consensus says no. Like, a short answer is no, it cannot be. It's only genetic. And vice versa, Type 2 fibers cannot be converted to Type 1. Although several studies have concluded that it actually is possible, because the studies right now that conclude it's not possible, they are very short term. If explosive power is a phenomenon that takes a lot of time to develop, and if this phenomenon to a large extent is based on muscle fiber composition, it's probably not enough to conduct studies that are only 6 weeks long. You would have to do it for multiple years perhaps. And this is very problematic, of course, because it's very hard to conduct such a study. In addition to that, they have analyzed like volleyball players and compared their dominant side that they jump on compared to their weaker side. And they have found out that their dominant side, for example, has a lot more fast twitch muscle fibers than the non-dominant side. This can hint that fast twitch muscle fibers can in fact be affected, but it takes like a lifetime of training. And once again, that's hard to assess in a study. Likewise, if we analyze world-class endurance athletes like marathons or marathon athletes or cross-country skiers, and we analyze world-class powerlifters and sprinters and jumpers and all of that, we can see that they lean towards a 90-10 ratio. For example, the endurance athletes, they have 90% slow twitch muscle fibers, and the power athletes, they have 90% fast twitch muscle fibers. This begs the question, were they just genetically more gifted than the rest of the athletes, and they reaching this world class, was this a filtering process, or did they reach this composition because after years of training their body kind of adapted to it, or is it a combination of both factors? This is very hard to tell, and I am not qualified to actually answer this question, but there is one thing I am sure of. Explosive power can be developed through appropriate training. Now, whether that is because of muscle fiber plasticity, or whether it is because your ability to recruit more motor units, or you just become more powerful for any reason, I don't know the reason exactly, or the proportions of like which factor is the most dominant in this case, but I know that power can be developed, and I approach training my athletes in this way. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.